How is Nevada's workforce keeping up with the constant drumbeat of new technology? Well, that's what we're discussing on this episode of Nevada Week.
Support for Nevada Week is provided by Senator William H. Hernstat, Cashman Equipment, Valley Electric Association, and additional supporting sponsors.
Well, welcome and thank you for joining us this week on Nevada Week. Well, Vegas PBS is engaged in a program called American Graduate, where our station is bringing awareness to what we used to call vocational jobs. Now, these jobs are what require credentials after high school, but not necessarily a four-year degree. But what they do require, across the board, are highly skilled employees that are well-versed on the latest technology. Now, these types of jobs are also projected to form our widest labor gaps, where demand for a skilled workforce outpaces our state supply. Now, filling these gaps could mean a boon for Nevada's economy. Not filling them could mean a bust. So the question is, where does current and emerging technology fit into this conversation? And how might our state leverage technology to build a workforce of the future? Well, we've got a great panel to help us discuss this. Please welcome Tommy Rayo, Service and Parts Director of Findlay Toyota, Michael Spangler, Dean for the School of Advanced and Applied Technologies at the College of Southern Nevada, and Jonathan Davies, President of the Southern Nevada Cybersecurity Alliance. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Mike, I want to start with you. I mentioned vocational in my intro, something we used to use. What is the current terminology that we're using now?
The most commonly used is career and technical education. The idea is, of course, that the technology will change, but the careers will be lifelong endeavors.
And emphasis then on the technical. So is that the reason why we've changed the terminology? Is as technology has advanced, it's become a lot more prominent in what the needs are for our labor force?
Absolutely. The technology is, of course, advancing, but faster than that is the need for people who are agile in adjusting to new technologies. The workforce has to be not just technologically skilled, but they have to be skilled in learning new technologies or new applications of the technologies.
And when we talk about technology, where are some of the biggest workforce gaps that we see? Are there some specific jobs or specific sectors we're really seeing the biggest demand?
There are a good handful of jobs that are, or industries, I should say, that are in dire need for these technically adept middle-skilled jobs. The most obvious one that comes up, and we'll be talking about that one, of course, is in IT, information technology. The pace of change in that industry is phenomenal, and consequently the need for new people with new skills is a tsunami.
Jonathan, you work in that sector. What are some of the specific demands that you're seeing? Is it a specific job or is it a specific part of cybersecurity?
Certainly in the cybersecurity industry, there are skills shortages across the board. Here in Nevada, according to website CyberSeek, last year, our ratio of supply and demand was 1 to 2, which is below the national average of 1 to 3. So what that essentially means is, for every 2 people in a cybersecurity position, there's an empty one.
And I read on that CyberSeek site also, we have just over 1,900 jobs right now that are open in just cybersecurity
Yes.
alone for the state. Yeah, tremendous. Tell me, how about your sector? Where are the biggest gaps that you're seeing in filling employment?
Anytime you talk to anybody in the automotive industry, the first thing they talk to is technicians. There's a massive shortage in technically skilled automotive technicians for maintaining and repairing vehicles. And the focus on technology is much greater now than it was even 10 years ago because of the advancements in technology in automotive manufacturing and safety systems related to those vehicles.
And is it really that aspect, the tech aspect, that is limiting finding that right employee?
Yeah, it's definitely the biggest piece of it. You still need to understand conventional mechanics and be mechanically inclined, but you can't just have somebody that understands that piece calibrating a collision avoidance system, right? They have to understand the technology behind that system and the theory of how it works so that they can adjust as necessary when they're working on those components.
And let's look specifically at that. We had the opportunity to come out and witness what's going on at Findlay Toyota.
Yeah,
Let's take a look at that clip.
There's obviously a bunch of different levels of skills necessary to repair cars, but technology is really on the forefront of the automotive repair industry. So we look for people that have a good understanding of some of the basic technologies that are necessary to repair a vehicle.
So 20 years ago, roughly we had to go by feel, touching vehicles, listening to vehicles, hear how they sound, count bolt flashes. Today we actually have a scan tool that will give us multiple different what's called PIDs, which is tons of different information as far as how much air is going into the vehicle, how fast it's revolving, how each individual sensor is operating down to the voltages, and it makes it much easier to diagnose.
Modern vehicles that are being produced today have upwards of 14, 15, 20 computers. A lot of the safety features that are built into vehicles, like pre-collision avoidance, blind spot monitors, things like lane keep assist, they're all controlled by computers and cameras. And in order to diagnose and repair those components, you have to have a firm understanding of technology.
Today, this vehicle is actually in to check the pre-collision system. We're going to verify that the camera is set up correctly and that the millimeter wave system is operating normally. The first thing that we would do is obviously grab our scan tool, plug the scan tool in the vehicle and check for any fault codes, looking for any obvious reasons. Do we have a voltage problem, like no voltage to the sensor or an open circuit?
I don't think that a lot of people realize how fruitful this career path can be, and it's not like it used to be thought of, where you're dealing with a bunch of oil and grease and it's dirty and it's dark. We put a lot of focus on creating a work environment where technicians are able to be productive and be more focused on technology services, and it's much less of a laborious job and more of a technology-based and data and information-based career path.
Now, if we're set up incorrectly, the tech stream will tell us if there's anything wrong. It'll give us a specific code. Right here, I didn't use the correct plate to actually show the millimeter wave sensor where the depth is. So it's saying, it gives me a code 12 to actually lift that up and get that set up correctly so I can diagnose the vehicle.
The advancements in technology have come a long way, and we need people that have the ability to understand where the automotive industry is going and be able to keep up with all of the information that's necessary to maintain and repair those vehicles.
So Tommy, first off, that vehicle you had mentioned has 60 computers in it. So is that correct?
Yes.
So,
yes.
So I mean, even we're talking 10 to 20 computers, and it just seems like maybe in the last couple of years we're advancing even more. It's amazing. Yep. Some of the terms I wrote down from that piece: scan tool, PIV, sensor. My favorite, millimeter wave system. I mean, it's a whole new language we're talking about here. Yep. What kind of certifications do you need to get a job to be able to do that type of work?
So we look for definitely some sort of independent training in a what would conventionally be called a trade school. A foundation, fundamental education. But one of the biggest things that we look at is ASE testing and certification. So Automotive Service Excellence provides several different levels of testing and certification in order to make sure that people are qualified to perform and diagnose some of these vehicles.
And Mike, let's talk about our high school system and our community college system. How are they providing a workforce pipeline and providing that early education so that they're getting those skills and getting those credentials?
There are several pathways for high school age students to progress into these middle skill jobs. Almost all of them require some post-secondary requirement. There's very few that they can come straight out of high school with. So we're intimately connected. We offer several different kinds of programs that award college credit to high school students for their high school vocational CTE programs. We're also establishing, courtesy of some of the input from Dr. Zaragoza, our president, on establishing career and technical academies, dual credit academies, where students can come to us while they're still in high school, take college classes, technical classes, and apply that credit back to high school as well as to their college diploma. So there are a lot of ways we're trying to interact there, particularly in those very critical areas like automotive and air conditioning and IT and cybersecurity.
You mentioned some of the tech skills that we're getting in high school. You mentioned also that a lot of that's happening on site as well. And so what kind of programs is Findlay Toyota having that's really building your own workforce?
It is, because we found that there's a void of that entry-level technician that has the fundamental knowledge to fill that role. So we're taking it into our own hands, and we've developed an in-house training program that starts the technicians off at an entry-level position and gives them opportunity to work through about 4 different stages of the technician role, all the while supporting their ASE testing, their independent manufacturer certification training, whether it be online modules or actually going to classroom training, instructor-led training, at the regional training facilities. And so we've had to do that because we haven't had enough supply of technicians that are coming with that foundation. If we have a technician that comes with that fundamental basis, like a dream come true for us would be a technician that came to us with a good, solid foundation of training and even just a couple ASEs. That's going to tell us that person's interested in investing in themselves and furthering their career, and that's the type of person we want to invest in as well.
Jonathan, let's talk about a little bit more about cybersecurity. What kind of employee are you looking for, and is there a system in high school that's building the right skills? How much of that is then going into what the employer is actually doing?
Well, absolutely. One of the things that we're fortunate to be able to sponsor and support with SNCA is the High School Cyber Patriot program, which is essentially where teams of middle and high school kids, they go and compete in national hacking competitions. And when you see the sheer joy, when you see the spark of passion in these kids that, they just learned how to hack a computer, it's that spark that then leads them on to say, well, where am I going to take this after high school? And, more often than not, in Southern Nevada, they end up at Dr. Spangler's institution, which I can say through experience, the caliber and the quality of the students graduating from the applied science programs is phenomenal. And I think that most employees in the tech space would rather have somebody who has some practical experience, who can demonstrate, rather than just entirely theoretical learning.
And aside from just the practical experience, the technical experience, Mike, how important are these soft skills? Tommy touched upon this a little bit, that we have this kind of intangible of what the right employee is that just has the right base to be able to develop those skills.
Absolutely. What we like to call in general the soft skills, but particularly things like basic mathematics, but also communication skills, interpersonal communication, written skills. We don't necessarily need our automotive techs, for example, to write the Great American Novel. We want them to write the Great American Invoice or the Great American Safety Procedure. It needs to be practical, but they need to have a measure of articulability, if that's a word.
Communication skills is a big one, right?
Communication skills.
Yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, when a technician is diagnosing or repairing a vehicle and translating that information to the service advisor that then communicates with the customer, it's critical that they're able to clearly communicate in detail what was done or what needs to be done in order to get that vehicle back on the road. And we put a lot of focus and emphasis on communication and making sure that people understand, how important it is that if we don't communicate properly, that it can result in major issues, whether it be ordering a part, right? If you don't communicate the right part number, the right location in the vehicle, all of these things, and with the improvements in technology, a lot of that is being done now through computers. I mean, we're messaging each other back and forth. We're using software systems that allow us to be more efficient in the technical space, keeping the technicians in their bay, working on cars, keeping them productive. So communication, written communication is critical. In situations where they do need to handwrite notes on a repair order, these are all legal documents that we have to keep and make sure are legible and can be read. So the written communication, verbal communication, and you also touched on mathematics as well. In order to work on these systems, you have to be able to calculate angles. You have to be able to understand all of the mathematical equations that the vehicle is computing at every moment. And although we don't have cybersecurity issues with automobiles, they are big rolling computers this day and age.
And you mentioned just the position could be very lucrative. How much does a technician make?
So we have entry-level technicians that with the right training and certification, very early in their career can make upwards of $40,000 a year. With a couple of years of good investment in themselves and investment in us, they can get upwards of $60,000 or $70,000. And we have some seasoned veteran technicians that have been with us for 7, 8 years that are making well over $100,000 a year.
And if they want a job in automotive care, where do they go?
Go to finleyauto.com, go to finleytoyota.com, and you can apply right on our website. One of the biggest things that we're looking for is people that are applying that have that foundation, that have that training, that education, some ASE certifications. The structure by which we pay those technicians is directly driven by ASE certifications.
Jonathan, how about cybersecurity? What can somebody at an entry-level we're talking about this middle skills expect to...
We talked earlier about certifications, and they can be an emotive topic in cybersecurity, but what I will tell you is at a high level, different types of certifications, they will give at first glance to an employer, they can have an appreciation of whether you're a beginner, intermediate or advanced level, professional. A lot of the certifications in our industry have certain requirements that have to be met with regards to number of years experience in certain fields. And they also have to be signed off on by another certified professional. So there's no shortcut. These certifications are not things that you can just cram for and go take the exam the next day and become certified. And I think that a lot of people that think that the certification just gets you the interview. I mean, there's some truth in that. You still have to have, the rest of the skills. But I can say firsthand that certainly having an advanced certification, it will not harm your chances. And so often these days where resumes are read by electronic e-readers, if they don't catch the buzzwords that they're looking for in your paper resume, then you won't even be shortlisted for further review.
An entry-level position, what might someone earn?
Well, there's such a diverse array of positions across cybersecurity, but certainly a common place for somebody relatively new to the profession to start out is as a SOC analyst or security operations center. And what that person does is on a 24/7, 365 basis, their team has to monitor all security events coming out of that organization's networks, and then they're responsible to report anything out of the ordinary up the chain.
And what might a salary be for that?
A salary could be anywhere from 65, 70,000 plus. And there really is no ceiling in the cybersecurity industry. The sky's the limit, really.
Mike, I mean, those are hefty salaries for entry level or a couple years in. What other sectors or jobs are we seeing that are in the highest demand that might be as lucrative as those?
There are a good handful of them, particularly in areas like electronics, where there's a high demand for telecommunications and other electronic-based skills. If we want to look at Las Vegas itself, one of the highest demand areas is air conditioning and refrigeration. Las Vegas exists because of air conditioning. And the demand for skilled air conditioning techs, not just for residential, commercial, central plants, chillers and boilers, and for commercial refrigeration. Somebody's got to keep all those kitchen refrigerators.
Now that sounds like something where technology maybe hasn't improved over the last 25 years. Has it, where the demand in tech and something like that is far greater than it was maybe 10, 15 years ago?
The technology has changed enormously in that field, not only in terms of changing things like refrigerants, but even the control systems, automation and controls. If you think about large buildings, they're not run from individual thermostats, they're run from central automated systems. So a skilled air conditioning technician has to first be an electronics and automation controls expert in order to make the system run properly. It's a very high demand field. And we're seeing that with a number of employers. Obviously, the large hotels on the Strip have a great need for skilled air conditioning techs. But Las Vegas is also rapidly becoming the global hub for data centers. That is, places that hold other companies' data in servers, and that takes a huge amount of air conditioning and power technology skills.
Yeah.
And the demand for that is off the charts.
Now, we've talked a lot about placement. Tommy, I want to come back to just keeping the employees that you have.
Yes.
What kind of challenges do you have in auto care of keeping those employees over long term?
So, obviously wage is one of the big factors. Work environment, work-life balance, those are things that are real critical to the up-and-coming generation. Making sure that they're getting the most out of their employer and also having the opportunity to live their life outside of work. We're challenged with other tech industries. Not so much here in Nevada, but in other regions of the United States. The oil industry has a big impact on dealerships and service technicians, maintenance repair technicians, but other aspects of technology where these skills can be used to work on vehicles and understand their intricacies. Those skills are also in high demand in other fields as well. So I've got a little competition sitting right next to me.
Well, let's talk about that, Jonathan. Is it the same kind of thing? Retention is very, very difficult in cybersecurity?
It is. It's tough. You'll be familiar with the old cliche. What if we train our people and they leave us? Well, what if we don't train them and they stay? It's a double-edged sword, but you have to invest in your people. From an employer's perspective, if you want to win the war for cyber resilience, then you have to win the war for cyber talent. And it's no mean feat, I assure you. But I like to say there's a 3-step plan that you can certainly improve your chances. And I think first of all, you have to define the nature and scope of your cybersecurity work. Who does what? And how successfully are they doing it? Then you need to identify any gaps in skills and personnel, so you can then know where your requirements are, and areas that are going to present a significant risk, not just today, but 3 to 5 years from now. You need to be forward thinking, and a good bellwether for that is figure out what your peers are doing. And then finally, what you need to do is to develop and enact a workforce development plan that focuses on hiring and retaining the best cybersecurity personnel. If you follow those steps, it's greatly going to improve your chances of coming out better off at the end of it.
So, Mike, a good workforce development plan. Where is CSN involved in that? And let's talk a little bit more just about some of the collaborations you have in making sure that you're really connecting with the employers in these demand sectors.
We have a number of different ways that we work. Obviously, we have industrial advisory committees that tell us where we should be going and what directions are most fruitful for our constituents here. But we're also members of the associations, like Jonathan's association. We have a number of connections with employers where the employers underwrite some of the transitions of students from entry-level to advanced-level skills. Some of the work we have with, for example, some of our defense contractors help us expedite those folks through our program and into their employment. But the employment situation is still very, very competitive and very tight.
And students that are in that and potentially in those programs or want to be in those programs, how do they connect with CSN in the right way? Is it going to counselors, or is it talking to their employers they're already working for?
Many of our employers are already on board with us, but just a quick trip to csn.edu and we can make connections right away. I think we can get folks started on any of these programs with relative ease.
We have a few minutes left, and I want to come back to what our state can do and what legislation can do. 2017 was a very workforce-based heavy legislative session. We passed a work-based bill. We passed a dual credit enrollment bill that we've already talked about. What do you see the state could potentially do legislatively, Tommy? I'll start with you, to really improve feeding in the right types of employees that you need in something like auto care.
I think it's about investing at the early stages of the educational process for people to understand what can be practically applied in the workplace. And I think taking the time to come and understand from employers, watching this show, understanding what we need in order to better serve our end customer. The whole concept that we focus on is customer service. We want, particularly in our automotive group, whatever whatever vehicle our customers are driving, we want them to continue to service with us and buy another vehicle from us. So in order to do that, we need people, which make the difference, that understand how to execute at a high level and be efficient and produce a quality product.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. We're out of time. We really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. And thank you, as always, for joining our discussion on Nevada Week. And we're going to continue this discussion on our Nevada Week Extra, so please visit our website to view this continuing conversation, or watch this episode again, or access resources that we have discussed on the show. Also, if you have a topic or an issue that you'd like us to discuss on Nevada Week, we'd always love to hear from you. So please find us on social media or email us at nevadaweek@vegaspbs.org. Well, thank you again, and I'll see you on the next Nevada Week.
Funding for this program was provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting as part of American Graduate Getting to Work, a public media initiative to help communities prepare all students for success in school and careers.